It's interesting for me to be talking about Jeffrey Epstein now. I've known him since 1986, 87. I've known Ghislaine Maxwell also forever. We all kind of belong to the same social circles. So, you meet people and that's just what it is. And she's friendly, she's funny, she's attractive. And she doesn't feel like a criminal. She was lovely. And she kept all the binders with all the pictures of what Jeffrey had in terms of art pieces and furniture and, tchotchkes and all of that. I used to work for Sir James Goldsmith. Jeffrey came to me through one of Jimmy's daughters, Isabel, and then he wanted me to work for him. And I said, no, I thought nothing of it. At the time, he didn't live in that big house on 70th Street. The big house belonged to Les Wexner, and he was doing the house next to it that was half the size. And then I was telling Jimmy, and Jimmy said, I don't want you to work for him. I don't want him in any of our houses. I don't want him in my life. And he said, this is a person who provides, other people with young boys and young girls. So when people tell you no one knew until 2010, it's complete bullshit. Everybody knew. And that's what makes it so horrifying that hundreds and hundreds of girls had to go through what it went through, when in fact, it was obvious that he was a criminal 40 years ago. No one had evidence because, you know how society functions. I think until it is in the public, most people fail to see. So the people who knew and didn't share his proclivities avoided him very, very carefully. And those who didn't and probably liked what he was offering, stayed with him. When he came to me in 2010, I didn't want to work for him because he came to me then through another friend of mine. And I said, no, I don't want to work for him. And she said, well, you can't really, he's done some awful things, but he's paid his debt to society and he is another person. So, I thought to myself, who am I to judge anyone? I started working for him. And then it became obvious in all of his houses, because I went to all of them, horrible things were happening. When you went upstairs in the house in New York, you had sort of meandering corridors with little rooms that were dark, with photos of very young girls, with hardly pubescent, with little tits. And you had massage tables. You had all of that. When you went to the house when I went to the house in Palm Beach, you had photos of naked girls everywhere. And the thing which I found most astonishing is that the staff never looked you up in the eyes. It was just very weird. And when we went to the house on the island, then this is when it became, you entered I mean, because I was with him, so we visited all the bungalows. And the first bungalows on the left when you came up, or the two bungalows, they were like bunk beds. And I asked him, I said, but why on earth do you have bunk beds? And he said, well, for the girls. And all of a sudden became very clear for the girls. And you had all the rooms, you are on the beach. It was so beautiful, as you see in the pictures. And you would think that all the windows were open and then you'd live inside and outside. No, all the indoor spaces were dark with curtains drawn, and the air conditioning was probably at 58. It was so cold. And then there was a room with computers, and I said, what is that room for? And he said to me, well, this is a room for the girls, because they play on their computers and they do that. And and then he said, I want you to do a big protection room for me underneath the pool. So we would have lifted the entire pool area and put a protection room downstairs. And I said, what do you want in that protection room? He says, well, I want beds. I want beds on casters that we can move around, beds for two people. This is when I realized on the island what he was living on the island, that I decided it was not going to work for him. So I had started to work, had sketched a few things for the libraries, for some bathrooms, for stuff like that. But, his bedroom, some things, but there was nothing really all that substantial. I mean, honestly, there isn't one client of that caliber who is not fussy. Nobody takes the first idea as the answer to all their questions. So it's not the fussiness that sort of upset me. It truly is what transpired from him. Yeah, I think that, yes, it changed them, I'm sure, a lot. And I think that, you have to think about it. I mean, this was 2010, 2011. And I think after that, it became so very obvious what he was doing that I think he put less attention into the island. And I think that, he did less. I don't think he worked on his houses the way that he had done before, whether it was in Florida or even in France or in New Mexico.
So he had that section built, the woman's section, which does sort of mimic the harem.
Yeah.
This temple, it began as a music pavilion, didn't it?
He did.
What shifted that? At what point in time did he sort of move away from being a...
I think when he probably realized that nobody was going to go there to listen to music. And then he found a way to make it attractive and to make it Like, it's the same thing than when you have a park, a big park in a house in the country, and then you have a pavilion.
With regards to the conspiracy theories, they're absolute bonkers. I don't believe that there are secret tunnels or there were any rituals or any of that.
No, there was nothing like that.
With regards to the design, so around this time, and the emails that have come out from him show this as well, that exactly around that time, he started really getting into the harem stuff and sultans, and particularly in Marrakesh and harems there. And some of them are similar in design. So did you help with the design of what was built in?
I never felt that someone like Jeffrey Epstein had any inclination for the spiritual world. The idea of evil worshipping and all that is, in my opinion, entire bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think that he built it because it was a fun thing to build.
Yeah.
But I think that was it. I mean, and when we visited it together, it never, felt as if it was something so special. And I never tried to find anything in it.
And it's such a ridiculous thing. It really is. Forgive me, but it's to do with the patterns. Because conspiracy theorists will focus on anything. If it looks odd, they will create a mythos around it. And they focus on the temple because it looks odd.
Well, of course. And we all, I mean, even the builders and everybody, knew that it was weird.
They look at the patterns and people say, what does it symbolize? Who created the patterns? I don't know if you know what I mean. On the raised the platform.
I think that I want to debunk the whole thing because this is absurd. I think that, as a designer, if a client tells you, I want a floor pattern outside my pavilion to be original, you go in your head and you start designing patterns and then you come up with one, you send it to him and he says, great. That's how it happens.
Is that exactly how it happened? So it's not influenced by, I don't know.
No, it's not. Jeffrey Epstein was not cultured that way.
No.
And I have zero, but maybe I'm wrong, and maybe, a lot of things happened after I left, but I absolutely don't believe in any of that.
Do you help design that pattern that's on the...
Well, I have designed, to a degree, I must have done a couple of sketches for it, but, one of my assistants went to him one day at the townhouse up here because he had to give him some drawing or something. And he went in, and Jeffrey Epstein was in a room with other people, and he was actually pawning a girl who looked hardly 15. My assistant left this house horrified, and a perfectly elegant gentleman, and he told me, he said, I don't want to be involved with that person. I know that he was very admirative of Jimmy Goldsmith, who had that life. But, Jimmy was not a sex deviant. He had mistresses and wives and girlfriends and all of that. But they were all, reasonable ladies who knew exactly what they were getting into. And he wasn't picking them up out of, blue-collar neighborhoods, promising them the world. He never... I don't think Jimmy ever misled anyone. I think that Jeffrey Epstein did mislead all these poor girls in telling them that he was going to pay for this, going to pay for that, which he did, by the way.
Tuition fees, life, clothes, etc.
They'd do anything for it without understanding that they were selling their souls to the devil. And honestly, I understand your point that it's not all black and white, but I think, as far as I'm concerned, someone like Jeffrey Epstein is pretty black, and I think he seemed. I just couldn't stand him. There was nothing in him that was appealing, honestly. A lot of people, my friend, other girl in New York who's having so much trouble because of him, the public relation.
I'm not sure.
Yes, you know her. She got into huge problems because of her friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. She asked me, she says, well, because she became friendly with Jeffrey in the last 2 or 3 years of Jeffrey's life. And she organized dinner parties in his house on 70th Street. And she said to me, well, but I didn't know what he was. I didn't know what he was doing. And, I told her, I said, listen, everybody knew what he was doing. Everybody knew. So if people came to his house, they chose not to see. But in the same way that, we think that the Weinsteins are great people or whatever, and you think, oh well, the Weinsteins are the best, movie promoters in the world, and so you should be friendly to them. They're all horrible people. I came back from the island with him, and I was sitting in his plane, and I was looking at his hands. First of all, I was very embarrassed because when you get to the airport, and if the person who is, the owner of the plane and is a sex offender, then you have the police. So you have the police, and it's so, you sort of try not to see and try to not pay attention, but it's very difficult not to. And in that flight back, I told him, I said, listen, I can't work for you anymore. I just can't. I'm sorry, I can't. And and that was the end of my relationship with him. And he called me for an entire month, on every single phone line, wanting to speak to me, and I didn't want to speak to him. And that was it. I was very lucky because I could leave and I could give him back his money and not feel that like I was going to die of hunger. He never caught me in the way that he probably caught other people. If you give them that much money, they can't leave. And I think that for all the people who worked on the island, who were the builders and the people who would drive the boats and all of the helicopters or whatever, what could they say? And I remember that we were looking with one of the girls who had become one of his assistants. She was going to get married, and he was going to buy her a house. It's pretty powerful, when you are
Financial control.
Yeah, a 24-year-old girl who's marrying her dream boy, and then she's getting a 1.5 million house, and as a wedding present. I think it's hard to say no. I fled when I realized what was happening. I really did. I just don't want anything to do with it. Morally, I think that, I mean, I'm not a priest of any sort, huh? But, and I'm certainly no better than anyone. But I think there are just some things that are unacceptable. And I think to set up a life to abuse people who are weaker than you is beyond contempt. And I think that, a lot of people shared in his magnificence as far as the presence of young women or whatever. And I think that those people are worthy of contempt too.
And then did he not try and sue you or something?
Of course he tried.
Yeah.
Because when I left, I told him that this was it. There was the hours that I'd spent on the job. And he said, I want all my money back. And I said, well, you really can't have all your money back. And he said, well, his brother then got into contact with me and threatened to sue me. So I said, I absolutely don't care. I'll send you all your money. And I sent him all his money back. And after that, I didn't want to have anything to do. I think I saw I saw Guylaine afterwards. I even had a dinner in town. We were only four of us at a dinner party in somebody's house, and she was perfectly wonderful and chatty, and so British in her ways, and that was honestly, I had a very hard time believing that she was guilty of anything, and I think it was sort of a Stockholm syndrome, of having had the problems that she had growing up, and then meeting Jeffrey, and who was like her father, and I think it was all of those horrible things, and that's but
Yeah.
metaphor.
And when you left the island, what what had been completed at that point and what was unfinished?
Nothing was completed.
No.
No. Nothing was completed. The master bedroom was not completed, was completely demolished. His bathroom was demolished as well. The girls' quarters were also demolished. Everything that had begun, and also he wanted me to draw as we were building, which is horrible, because then he was very demanding of my time, and he said, "Well, you have to come to Palm Beach, you have to come to the island, you have to." But I had, I have other things to do, other clients to take care of, and I remember when I was in a client's plane, and we were flying, I don't know, from Palm Beach somewhere, and he called me, and I hid behind the clients, and I said, I'm with this client, I can't do anything, I can't come to you. It was just, I was trying to find excuses not to show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's when you
so
know that it's definitely you did the right thing to leave. And
time to leave.
yeah, and the music parlor, pavilion, whatever you want to call it, temple. What sort of state was that in when you left? How
When I
far?
left, it was white. It
Uh,
was in white, and it was, prepped to become whatever he wanted it to become. But
yeah,
the funny thing is, which really amused me, is that when you looked at Jeffrey's house, the appearance of it was that it was sumptuous. But when you went inside, and for me, whose job it is to see the difference between good and not so good, I was looking at it. It's bad.
yeah. It's interesting you say that because see, there are some parts that I think I like in his taste, but I'd say 90% is quite terrible. It seems almost luxurious on the outside. It's almost like a facade. When you step inside, when you get deep in within, there's nothing there. If that makes sense. Similar to the so-called temple. From the outside, it's some grand. I find it very interesting, actually, that structure. But from the
Yeah,
outside, that looks very, very interesting, gets your eye, very chic. But then when you see the inside and how they constructed it in the end, because I think he tried to cut some corners,
it
and it
did.
seems like the prop, similar to some of his other buildings. It seems almost like a prop, like he just wants things for show. He
Yes.
doesn't. There's no substance to it.
But I think he was very much like that. It was all about appearances and show. But on the other end, he was truly, truly evil. And the thing is, what made me think lately about what's happening to the British royal family is akin to what happened to the French royal family, with one scandal, like the necklace affair, which really brought the monarchy down, because it destroyed all the respect that, people had for their rulers. And I'm looking at it and thinking, I don't know how long they have. That's a scandal that is so tremendous that we haven't seen, the majority of it. And I think when the whole thing comes out, it's going to be a wave of mud that's going to be very difficult to get out of.